Good day, everyone, and thank you so much for joining C.H.L.M.S International Women's History Month. This will be the last of our events for this event for the Women's History Month. Will be today, as tomorrow is Easter. In respect of that holiday, we're not going to have a show, but we will be having one today. And as I've stated from the beginning, if there's information that you would like to have, or you want to have this video because you want to share it or repurpose it or whatever it is that you're looking to do with the video, please let us know so that we can get you a copy of the video, because it's important. Excuse me, because it's important that we share this information. One of the purposes behind C.H.L.M.S Medi-Helpz Foundation is to ensure best health, not better, but best health outcomes for individuals from under-resourced areas. And there's a lot of them, right? But there's also a lot of information that they don't get, which they should get, because a lot of times people don't pay attention to the fact that this information needs to be shared. Excuse me. So today we have a repeat, and I'm so proud of her and all that she didn't just accomplish this in the past. So yeah, she's a historical figure, not just for the past, but for the present and going into the future. She had, from what she just told me, she has no idea when she gonna slow down. It's not even in her template. Like, it's not even in her 5-year calendar. Nowhere in her 5-year calendar does it say, Dr. Neely, slow down. So she's going to keep it going, and she's here tonight again with us tonight to actually share some information with us that we all need to have. She is Dr. Angela J. Neely. She has her BS, her MS, and her PhD. She is a retired science educator, business person, research scientist, retired professional athlete, Olympic coach, Olympic trials master, official philanthropist, and entrepreneur who believes all people, both young and senior, can and will continue a life of learning. It's called lifelong learning, and I'm so with Dr. Neely on that. Dr. Neely's experience as an educator has shaped the academic and athletic careers of thousands of students around the world. She has produced, coached, and monitored and mentored 7,000 plus students who have become physicians, dentists, doctors, lawyers, educators, entrepreneurs, and professional athletes. So she covers the spectrum. Dr. Neely earned an honorary doctorate as a doctor of philosophy from the School of Business at Trinity International University of Ambassadors. She has a Master of Science as an Eli Lilly Fellow from Indiana University in Science Education, as well as a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry from Fisk University, with a minor in chemical engineering as a dual degree student with Fisk and Vanderbilt University. That's right. She's got science running all through her blood. Dr. Neely was selected by former National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, astronaut Dr. Macy Jemison, medical MD, and the executive director, Julia Robinson Nelson, of the Dorothy Jemison Foundation for Excellence, to serve as a co-investigator for a 5-year grant from NASA under the umbrella of the Summer of Innovation $1.7 million grant. A STEM hosted at the Los Angeles Unified School District, the second largest in the United States. 600 students, 80 educators, 10 AmeriCorps interns, 10 AmeriCorps volunteers, 5 professional curriculum team members, and Dr. Jemison worked to communicate, cooperate, and realize academic outcomes. Dr. Neely has also advised Dr. Jemison over the past 29 years on science, technology, engineering, and math curriculum from Show Rosemary Ivy League Boarding School, Connecticut, Colorado School of Mines, Colorado, and Cornell University, New York. And so, without further ado, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to bring Dr. Neely in to this conversation so that we can learn all about, science, what she's learned in science, and what piqued her interest as a very young girl in the field of science. And then also, we're going to talk about some of those sports accolades. If you can see in the back, she has tons of them. And as a matter of fact, she just won some more because she was just at a competition here in Chicago where she ran. And while she didn't win, it's not important that she didn't win. What's important is that she ran. So how many of us can actually say that we have the stamina to run a 200 mile, a 400 mile? How many of us can say that we have that stamina? How many of us can say, well, especially women, especially because this is International Women's History Month, how many of us women can actually say we played professional football? I know I certainly can. I mean, she continues to reach these accolades. And as I stated earlier, nowhere on her calendar does she have down there slow down. No. So we're going to go ahead and dive a little bit into Dr. Neely's background so that we can learn more about this extraordinary woman who is making history, who has made history, who is making history now, and who will continue to make history in the future. So thank you, Dr. Neely, for being here with me and being here for the C.H.L.M.S International Women's History Month.
Well, thank
Dr.
you,
Neely.
Thank you.
So what piqued your interest as a young girl in the sciences?
In the sciences, my father was this amazing man, Donald George Neely, and he was in his profession. First of all, he went to Meharry, and he was there from 1947 to 1950. And he got married, and to my amazing mother, Betty Jean Bullard Neely. And they got married in 52. And in 55, they had a baby that was stillborn. So they really wanted children. So they adopted myself and my sister, Jacqueline Lynn Neely Finch. While that was going on, while we were adopted and we grew up in the house, there are mom and dad. Dad was a dental technician, and he gave me a chemistry set at 8 years old. 8 years old. And I just thrived. And he bought me a model car and a model car kit, what you buy to little boys. So all the little stuff you buy for little boys, he was buying for me because he knew that he was I guess the word modern is the word I would use. He was a very forward thinking man and a gentleman, very, very, very kind, very generous. And he wanted us to be able to take care of ourselves. He knew the sciences was a place where we would always have a life to take care of us. So he gave me the chemistry set. I thrived with that. I was really shy, very shy, struggled to read, struggled to get out of kindergarten. I repeated it, struggled to get out of first grade, second grade, third grade. But I had a gift for math and science. I had a gift for art, went to art school when I was a kid. And so being able to take one-dimensional and making it three-dimensional without having to read instructions was absolutely a gift. And the chemistry part came about as a result of just the creativity. To be a scientist, you have to be artistic because you have to create. You have to creatively think, how can I solve a problem? Which involves trials. First trial, second trial, third trial, involves the scientific method, the 5 parts to that. So that started very, very early. And then our father had a laboratory in our house growing up. So we were around chemistry things, all of our life, my sister and I. And I just gravitated to it. It was really just something that I loved. And I grew up and became a chemistry teacher. How did that happen? Well, when you're exposed to it as a young person, you can see where you want to go. But if our young people, especially in our community, are not exposed, they can't see where they're going. And so I had a path that I started to carve out over time, but I had to overcome, the reading part and being excessively shy. And I had poor health too. I had really poor health when I was born and had horrible anemia and really struggled being in school. I missed many weeks of school sometimes because my health was so bad. And that went on till I was about 12. So that obviously contributed to, and I had a little bit of dyslexia going on. So I had to overcome all of those things in order to really get good footage over those years. But I had two great people. My parents, to me, were saints. They did anything for us, made sure we had everything we needed. They sacrificed if they needed to, but we were the center of their world. And again, like I said, I'll go back to the science part. My father knew if I had a life in science, I'd had a great life for as long, as God had me on earth. So.
And you mentioned something a little earlier, and I'm not sure if I didn't catch it or not, but you said your dad bought a chemistry set. And I remember growing up, my mom didn't buy a chemistry set for me, right? But I was the type of child that went out. I didn't want a doll. I remember she gave me a doll baby for Christmas one year, and I cried. And she's like, "What's wrong with my baby? She don't want." I give her a doll, and she cried. And I had one of my aunts come over to the house, and she gave me a fire engine. And I fell in love with the fire engines. I played with the fire engine more than I played with more than I played with the doll.
Yeah.
And over the years, as I continue to go, I continue to be like, into into guy things. Like I'm a sports fanatic. I love sports, right?
Yeah.
So I watch all different kinds of sports. I'm not sure, if I have a best one or, I did have a best one, but then so much was being written into the, sports world till I was like, okay, about stuff, how they're fixing things and how, all this underhanded things that money so often brings, all this
Yes.
evil stuff. So I just fell out of, the sports thing. But that's really interesting that you, like I, started on a career path or doing things in our lives based
Yeah.
on what we saw as kids, what we were around as children is what. And then come to find out, my dad died when I was 4, but my
Yes.
dad played professional baseball.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, he
wow.
played. He was on the semi-professional football team on the New York Yankees semi-professional football team. But this was back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And I said
Yeah.
maybe that's why. And so I didn't get a chance to know him because he died when I was a baby.
Yeah.
But from the stories they tell me, like when he was in high school, he was in football, and from all the stories that they tell me, I'm like, well, maybe that's where I get it from, right?
Yeah.
Is the love of that. But comparing those two, and good evening, Carolyn Coleman, comparing those two and how we get started and things that we like to do, right?
All
But
right.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
You mentioned something. I was doing some research earlier during the day, and I was looking up different chemists and
Mhm.
different African American female scientists. Of
Mhm.
course, there wasn't that many, and of course, the history that was out there wasn't really limited. But it came across something that you just mentioned, which is the science and the arts,
Yes.
how you connected the two. And I believe it was Dr. Jemison. I believe I actually put her quote in for your posting for today, where she actually talked about how science and art. So
Yes.
is there an interlocking connection? Like with one, like what is the interlock? It has to be, if you're not the only one that's saying that, it's bringing up art with science.
Well,
So what is the interlocking connection between the two?
so when you talk about a prism, okay, and when you shine light through a prism, right? Clear,
Hmm.
bright, white light through a prism. On the other side, you see not necessarily the rainbow, but what we call Roy G. Biv. Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, blue, green, violet, indigo really doesn't exist. And those colors come about. Those colors are what make art in terms of the colors provided for art. In order for you to see those colors in art, you have to put it on a medium. You have to put it on something where the color will be absorbed into the medium. For example, paper. If I take paint and put it on paper, Okay, I can now see the reds, the yellows, the blues, the greens, the orange. So now we talk about primary colors. Okay, red, yellow, blue are your primary colors. Then when you begin to mix the colors, you begin to see the secondary colors. When you see the secondary colors on a medium and you begin to mix those and match those, now you have tertiary colors. So now that creates our art. And then from there, that's for example, as I said, paint. That might be oil-based paint on paper. It might be water-based paint on paper. It might be oil or water-based paint on canvas, whether it's stretched or unstretched. It might be oil or water-based paint on wood, just like wood from a tree, where you cut the tree down, you take the wood and you take the bark off and you start painting on that. It might be on metal. It might be, on any medium. Medium is the substance for which you place the paints or the charcoal or whatever. And so the colors that we have on those mediums came from the light that came through the prism. That's where the tie is between art and science. So
Okay.
without science, we wouldn't have the art colors as we know it today, as taught in art classes to elementary kids, excuse me, middle school kids, whatever. So that's our tie. And then from there, when we add heat or cool, now we change that whole art even more drastically, make it even more amazing. Does that does
That
that
makes a lot of sense. And what I would what I would ask and what I would encourage is that for those educators that are in the out in the audience, well, not audience, whether they're listening now or listening at some later point in time. I just had another speaker on. Shonda was on Wednesday. I want to say it was Wednesday. It was Wednesday. She was on and she talked about the same thing. Now she's in the mental health field with young students, right? And she's
Mhm.
like, we got to talk with them. And we have to stop. We got to stop doing the same old, thinking that our kids are going to learn. We're in a totally different atmosphere, right? We're in a totally different learning environment right now. And that goes to the same thing as art. I think, if more educators, and I'm not an educator and I'm not railing on an educator, and my son is not in grammar school or, high school, but I have, people that have kids, people that have grandkids, right?
Mhm.
If the educators could somehow or another work with parents or work with community organizations to bring about like workshops that inspire children, because a lot of children, they like STEM, right?
Mhm.
But they also like art. And
Yes.
so many people are, when it comes to kids like in art, so many people turn on, you shouldn't do that. That's art. You ain't never gonna make no money, right? But what they don't bring into the field is that there's an interlocking connection between
Absolutely.
art and chemistry or art and science. Pick a
Absolutely.
science. It's there. So if you can make that a fun environment to learn from,
Absolutely.
imagine where our kids would be. So now we got STEM, we got art, we got these fields that they traditionally stay away from because of the fact that they're told, oh, you'll never, well, what you gonna do with that degree, right? Like an art, you go to school for fine art. What you gonna do with that degree? Very little of us, especially in our community, very little of us know that that's the interlocking connection. Therefore, that's why they're connected. So when we're starting to think about outside the box, maybe bringing that to the kids,
Well, when
and
you
say, well, yeah,
absolutely, when you talk about STEAM, science, technology, engineering, the A is for art, M is for math. And so we bring all of those components together in order to make art three-dimensional, not just sculpture, not just metals, but making live art. So maybe you've got an art piece that you've created, but you want a little electricity running through it. So while it's on display, there's some lighting going on. Well, that's the art part, but that's the science part. And it's telling
right,
a story. You see moving people, and that's art. Art is what is in the mind of the artist. And they
right,
try to convey a message with what's in their mind based on their skill. And then they take whatever medium is available to tell that story. So art is so undefined, but it's an amazing piece because it's an extension of what our imagination is. And I think what you're saying, and I think I would be saying the same thing, is that what educators do is we bring out the best in the students by getting them to open up and be artistic, put the phones down and go to the mind and see what's there, what's the creative piece. So with my little ones, when my nieces and nephews were little, they're not little anymore, they have children of their own who are 1, 2, 3, that kind of thing. But what I would do with them, because they fortunately had me as an aunt who happened to be a science teacher, I would bring science toys or buy science toys and bring them home for them to play with. So I might put crayons out and paper and paint and just some other little sciencey toys, just put it in front of them and see what they would do. Now they're 28, going to be dirty 30 next month, and then 36. And so now they have children. So we just put things out and see what the kids do with it.
Right.
Dad,
And when it came down to, I was saying STEM. I wasn't saying STEAM. I was saying STEM. Because
STEM just takes the art out of it.
Right, exactly.
We were saying, let's add the art in. And so the STEAM, they've expanded in the last few years. They've gone to STEAM as an extension from STEM because they added the art into it. And it's different on all the 50 states. Wherever there's more money, they're more progressive. They can add it in. Where they don't, they're just trying to get the basics, computers, and make it STEM. Yes. Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But this is the important part of it, right? If the places that we're going to, right, and the cities, Lord knows, Chicago's one of them. The cities in the other states that don't have enough funding for even the basic computers, right?
Right.
They're all different types of community-based nonprofit organizations that they can reach out to and say, hey, we need some assistance, right? We're trying to do this so we could teach kids about art. Expand our STEM program so we could teach kids about art and how it relates to science so that we can have more of them. Because this is a thing, Dr. Neely, you know this, I'm preaching to the choir.
You are.
America is so far behind on technology that we need to be using every piece we can to encourage all different types of learning. We have to stop, I say the same thing about healthcare. We have to stop saying, well, this one ain't giving this one ain't doing that, right? And we got to come together and figure out a way. All these 1,000,001 pieces of the puzzle that we got floating around in society, we got to find a way to come together. And instead of looking at this as a competition thing, look at this as a collaboration thing. Even in the states where they might not have all of the equipment, how about reaching out to some of the other states that do and say, and you might get no, but you know what? My mother always told me nothing beats a failure but a try. And asking, hey, do you have to have some online stuff that we could teach our students? Because we're really trying to get them interested in the art piece of it, especially those students that want to be in STEM or STEAM and they're struggling with it, because we really want to get them involved in it. Like if we were thinking that we add this arts piece to it, that might entice them to do a little bit better. But us holding back and only offering an option of, okay, you do STEM or you do STEAM because we're waiting for society to come save us. Let's be honest, Dr. Neely, it's not going to happen.
No. We have to take, even, and I think about this often, even as we look at our homes and we look at things that are in excess in our homes that we think we want to throw away. Sometimes giving those supplies, those things, those extra items, wires and plugins or whatever, to an elementary school, to the art, if they're going to do art, and just put a bunch of stuff in front of the kids and say, build me something. Just no rules, just build me something. Here's a bunch of supplies, build me something. You have X amount of time and see what happens with your creativity. You'd be surprised. I mean, when I was a kid, that's what I did. I was always creating something from my imagination. But, in my time, of course, we didn't have, cell phones and all these distractions and, a bazillion TVs. I only have one TV now even, but we had our imagination. And so getting that imagination back, but just creating a bunch of supplies, that's how something like the space glove was created by a child when they got ready to go to the moon. It was children who created that. And so many designs, you'd be surprised, where the young man recently takes a glove that interprets whatever someone is saying, and puts it in and makes it so it's visible, or I think it's visible to the person with a glove. They can read the glove, or that they can read the lips of a person or something like that, and interpret it in words. It's some amazing thing, but it was just basic stuff that people ordinarily would give to the Goodwill or whatever, throw away, that can be used and build and create something. So I think the imagination, we have to go back to teaching kids how to be imaginative, not always putting a phone in their hand at 8 years old to play games on it. That's cool, but how did those games get created? How did they get designed? Well, somebody's creative mind put it together. It might have been pen on paper. It might have just been, like I just said, a bunch of stuff. They put it together, it made sense, and then they found a manufacturer who would manufacture, and then they make millions off of it. So, but they hopefully hold the patent to it. So that would be my assertion. And typically, what happens, you're right, in places where there's not a tremendous amount of capital to do that, but there is a tremendous amount of people who want to be involved. They just start gathering things, and they start creating, and then from there, people start to fund them because they see what's happening, the positivity out of that project that was like something, but it was nothing, but it became something with imagination and with art. So, when those who have a science background know how to take a little bit of something and make it amazing, I mean, I know I've done it on many occasions. So,
That's so very, very true. Now, I want to move on to something else that you just adore, and I give you so much credit for it, and that's sports. So, is there an interlocking connection between sports and science, or was that just something you was like, I need to find something to do to get away from the camp, to get away from the lab? I need
no,
to find something to do. And so you say the easiest thing is for me to run or walk. And so you decided, okay, well, I'll walk. But you, of course, well, and then it'll lead to running. But of course, you've done so much more than, just the running of track. You've done a football, you've done a coaching, you've done so much more. So is there an interlocking between?
there is. There is yes, there is, because science is so intense that it requires so much detail and so much time, and so you need a break from that. You really need to get out, get fresh air. You need to be healthy. And so my first sport, actually, even though I struggled with my health and all of that, and my first language was French, which when I was 4, and my first sport was ballet. And so classical music, I've been listening to classical music since I'm 4 or 5 years old. And there's an art to that as well. So doing the ballet from 4 to 8, and the French from 4 until I went from the private school. Here it's called St. Richard's. Okay. It was started by the British. And so all of our teachers were the French teacher was from France. The Spanish teacher happened to be from Wales, New South Wales, Australia. English, all the teachers were from Great Britain, so they all had those British accents. We didn't really have any Americans per se in that school, but it was fascinating. So we had soccer. So while I was doing ballet outside of school, I was doing soccer inside of school. So I guess those would have been my first sports, because they were important, and because we were trying to find ways to get my health to get better. And my parents, and you have to think about the age of my parents and what was going on. A lot of canned foods. We were still left over from the canned foods because the depression happened from 29 to 39, and many people were eating out of canned foods. And some of my parents, so we had tons of canned food. But the downside to that is there's tremendous amount of preservatives, and it's not fresh food that we just picked off the tree, like the apple or the broccoli we just grew. So the nutrients all weren't 100%. So we felt like sports was an outlet. Get out, fresh air, run around, that kind of thing. And you get stronger and you get faster. Well, over time, I started playing softball when they started creating opportunities for us to play softball. I was 12 by then. But that helped my health, is the point. The ballet helped my health. We had swim. We were fortunate. We had a swim coach, so we had swimming. We had ballet. We had soccer. We got a chance to learn how to sail. We got a chance to go to Girl Scout camp. So all those exposures were so germane, and had a balance between the studying and the science, but you have the athletic part, the part that makes you stronger, faster. And you start out small. Obviously, I started out small doing ballet, and I was small, very much underweight till I would say high school. Even after high school, I started to really not be underweight anymore. I'm 5'7", so I was at 112, 115, 125, very much underweight and not really very muscular. But as time went on, I was introduced to weights when I was 13, and through high school, we didn't have at our high school, we have a nice high school. We have, it was from a financially high end part of the city, but girls sports had just 1975. I was going to be 15. Girls sports had just opened up, so us having as females having access to the weight room and that kind of thing, that was really more they let the boys, they didn't let the girls. But us getting to play sports, volleyball, softball, basketball, all in uniforms against one another, opened up, the door. But now you look at 2024 and young women, they're lifting weights in middle school and high school. They have access to that. They're not barred from that. They have strength coaches and psychophysiologists like what I have now as a master's athlete. So the picture has changed, but back then that's what we were afforded. But it made all the difference in terms of for me personally, improving my health, but also being around people my age running around. And I grew up playing with the boys, and so I wrestled with the boys, played football with the boys, basketball with the boys, fell out of the trees with the boys. I had a mini bike. I was in the soapbox derby at 12, probably one of the first girls, probably one of the first African-American young women, I'm sure, in my city. I can't imagine. I still have the helmet over on my wall over here in my museum, because that's where we are in my museum. But the sports part creates an opportunity too for social emotional. You have to work with other kids your age. You have to learn how to collaborate and work together on a team. Soccer is a team sport. Ballet is not necessarily a team sport. Softball is a team sport. Track and field I got into later. I was 29, and I only got into it because I got hurt snow skiing, and I got hurt playing basketball. And obviously, it's a team sport. And track and field, I always loved the Olympics. I mean, I remember watching the 1968 Olympics and then every Olympics since that time. But track and field came later. And so now, some 32 years later, I was telling you we were off camera, I've been sprinting for the last 32 years. In that 32-year period of time, in 1996, I tried out for the Olympic trials to get into the Olympic trials as a pole vaulter. Now here I'm 35, learning how to pole vault. So I took adult gymnastics. I learned how to vault with the boys, the high school boys. The coaches let me in. Swimming workouts, all of that. And I was short of making the trials, but it was a valiant effort. Back then, all you had to do was pole vault 11 feet. And I was flirting between 10 and 11. So behind me, right, this one right here, that's a picture of me vaulting at an indoor meet. And it was phenomenal training because I had to learn how to be upside down, and I still do upside down pull-ups. I still do handstands at 63. I still do cartwheels on a line to be sure I land from the spot where I started. It sounds crazy, but it's kept me vibrant and young, and I don't feel 63 when I'm doing a cartwheel. And I don't feel 63 when I'm doing the splits, and I don't feel 63 when I'm doing upside down pull-ups. We got folk who are in their 20s that can't do that, and they're guys and they can't do it. So it's been an amazing ride, pursuing that. But while I was doing track and field, I was in such good shape. So that's 95, 96. I was in such good shape by 2002, and I tried out to play pro football. But I did track workouts to get in that kind of condition, and had run in a couple world meets, and I wasn't pleased with my performance. So I stepped up the training, and I gotten so fast that I was able to go through the combine for women. They had it for women. They had a draft. And so I got drafted 20th in the second round. I was able to run a 4.4 second 40 meter, which is like unheard of. You think, oh my God, a woman can do that. Well, the men do it, but a woman can do it too. The women are becoming almost as fast as the men. They're not too far apart. So, sports is a good outlet. But you have a book in one hand, okay, and maybe you have a basketball or a javelin or whatever, or a baton in the other hand. So you have a balance, if you will. Miss Washington, does that help?
No, I was on mute. No, I was on mute. That's why
Okay.
it wasn't going through, because I was on mute.
No problem.
And I'm not. Once again, I'm not sure who out there is 60 in their 60s. Heck, I'm not even sure who's in their 20s who can actually do handstands. Do the stuff that you're able to do. I'm just really not under. I give you credit. I would love to know. And you're so right because of the simple fact that, and Carolyn Coleman is saying great background information. Yes, Carolyn, I certainly agree with you. She gives, Dr. Neely gives all of us something to try for. If we don't have to win in it, but there's
No,
absolutely no reason why we should, can say we're not even going to try, because we have people like this that are women like this that are in this world that
mhm,
are doing these amazing things. They're doing them, and unless she's at a track meet, unless you know her, you get to know her, which through LinkedIn, I'm very, very glad that I was actually able to meet Dr. Neely, because she's a wonderful person. But unless you have that kind of networking, it's not going to happen. You have no reason to. She's saying the benefits, the health benefits
oh,
that
absolutely.
she gets from doing all of these things that she's done now, she's done in the past, that she's now doing, and those things that she's going to continue to do.
Absolutely.
And we need to hear that. I'm
Absolutely.
not telling every woman to go out there and do it, but we
Oh,
need to hear it that if you wanted to do it, you can.
absolutely.
If you just wanted to try it, you could try it. But I have
Absolutely.
two questions for you. The first
Sure.
one leads back to the combine.
Yes.
If they weren't going to let women play football, can you please explain to me why they even had a woman combine? Or was it just because they had to do it?
Well, women's football, women's pro football, tackle football, actually, at that point, it was our understanding had been around for 30 years. Now, that was 20 years ago. It's my understanding that people who've really been researching women's football, tackle football, pro football, they say it goes back 100 years now. That it's been going on 100 years. I came to know about it when they wanted to start a pro football team in the city here of Indianapolis, and they decided to have tryouts. So I honestly didn't know they had women's pro tackle football with the same rules as the NFL. Same exact rules. Tackle, excuse me, the trash talking. I hate to say that. The grabbing, the clipping. That you can't grab behind the knee. You can't grab the mask. All of those rules apply. Same rules apply for the men that you watch. During the official season. The same rules we do. Okay, there are now, when I was playing 20 years ago, there were 7 leagues. Now there are 3 leagues, and it's called the Women's Football Alliance, whereas ours was the WFA, Women Football Association. So we played the same time frame that here in Indianapolis Colts played. So we were doing autograph sessions. We had an arena football team at the time. We were doing autograph sessions with the Colts, and we were doing them with the arena football team. It was pretty amazing. And so the draft was historic. They had not had, that was 20 years ago, they had not ever had a draft, and they had a draft, and it happened to have occurred in Atlanta. And so for those of us athletes who posted the times, the kind of times I said, were put into that draft so we could get drafted. Well, I got drafted actually to the team in Indianapolis, and I was, second in the 20th round, but I was the second overall pick on our team. There was somebody a little bit faster than me. There were 5 of us that got drafted on our team, but we got to go to the Indianapolis Vipers team. And we got to play in a Super Bowl. We played it in Birmingham, Alabama, against a Jacksonville team out of Florida. They were amazing. We didn't win, but the fact that we got to play in a Super Bowl before the Indianapolis Colts got to play was absolutely amazing. And I'll always be grateful. I just played a year, but I was the oldest one on the team. And the day that we played the Super Bowl, I know I was one of the oldest ones on the field. And so I was sent to run after this one little athlete who was this amazing running back. They called her Rocky. Rocky was half my age, but I could run as fast as Rocky, so I could catch her. All I had to do was catch one leg or one arm or whatever, not an arm, but really it's around the waist and below. Grab one leg, and then the rest of I was on defense, as they say, AJ, you catch him, we'll kill him. We don't literally mean kill him, but take him down, tackle. So it was an amazing ride, and again, playing with athletes. They were from all walks of life. Some of us were teachers. I was a teacher at the time. Some were teachers. Some were mechanics. Some were in the service. All different kinds of professions. But we all came together because of football. Many of those same women, because they're younger than me, play what's called fast 7 rugby. So they were playing rugby when they weren't playing football, which is no pads. And if you've ever watched rugby, that's some tough people. I think they're tougher than the people who wear helmets and pads that we wore. So, and cleats. But it was an amazing time to be able to go from track and field as a pole vaulter, stay in that kind of shape, go to world championship teams, and I was still running against the college kids. I was still getting into college meets, running college times until I was 44, which looking back was pretty amazing. So it's been a great life. But, understanding being able to do all of that also goes back to what do you do preventative wise? So I'm not on any prescription drugs for those out there who want to know, do you have to be on them? No, I'm not on any. I have asthma, but I don't do that either. I've changed what I do in my home, how my home is structured, and then my diet is everything. And then I do preventative things. For example, deep tissue massage, ionic detox, reflexology for the face, for the foot, neuromuscular, neurosystem reset. I have a chiro who does what's called flush outs, who works with the fascia. I now have another a coach that I'll hire to get me faster, stronger. I have a psychophysiologist that I check in with. So there's a number of things in order so I can stay healthy, even at 63 as a master's athlete. So.
And I thank you for that. Carolyn Coleman is saying she's active, but she's not that active. Wow. That's the same thing I say, Carolyn. I just sit with my mouth awestruck at everything that she's been able to do. And what I do want to point out to everyone is that's the importance of the video series that we do, is because we need to get the word out there. Sure, I could do, hey, I could do a video a month, or a video, every 3 months or something. But it's not telling the stories that need to be told. We should have actually learned about, it was good timing. I'm glad to say now I'm the first one. I haven't heard anybody else talk about the fact that there was a women's football combine and that there were women that were actually playing at the, NFL level, doing the same thing that NFL was doing. But this International Women's History Month isn't new. So why is it that we're not hearing about these type of things? Why is it that we have to have these videos in order to be able to hear about stuff like that? That's an important part of our history, I would think, because she didn't have to do it. And what she's doing is, as a chemist and as a scientist, what she's doing is she's finding the scientific elements that are interlocked with sciences. And I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that's why she has done so well, is because in her studying the sport, she actually had to study the science behind the sport. Like, she just couldn't go out there and do what she's doing, like the physiology reflex. She had to do some research on that. She had to look at it and say, okay, well, how does this do with what I'm doing? Like, really, and sit down and actually come up with the data that will make her do this. And many of us women, we don't have that data. So a lot of us are thinking that all we could do is what they tell us to do, when times have changed and we need to be doing what we want to do. Mine is us hurting ourselves. We need to be doing what we want to do. And there's absolutely no reason why we can't do it. So as we continue to, speak on these things, and I was just telling Dr. Neely before we got started, some of the things we talk about, they're so important that we need to keep talking about them. Why? Definitely. Because a lot of times on that first run, nobody's listening. Or they might hear a word and then perk up and then go back to whatever they was doing. Whereas you're consistently hearing it, it'll click.
Absolutely.
And that's the whole purpose behind what C.H.L.M.S Medi-Helpz Foundation does, as far as the getting the videos together and having people, senior subject matter experts, share their stories, because we need to hear it. Because without them sharing it, we wouldn't hear it. So I thank you, Dr. Neely, for coming on today, sharing your thoughts and your words. I want you to keep going. Go as long as you possibly can. I'll never catch up to you.
As long as you keep going, you keep going. Get started.
Look, I'll never catch up to you. I'm sure Carolyn Coleman will never catch. Well, I'm not gonna say that she'll never catch up to you, but she might, and I'm cheering for her too. That's what she wants to do, is to catch up. But what you've done throughout your life is historically amazing. It is amazing, and stories like yours need to be told. Stories like, how does art interlock with science? It needs to be told, especially to our young kids, because our young people, if we start them young, which is when they should be started, is young.
Yes.
Then we're miles ahead of where we should be. You know, I'm not saying you can't start at any time, but if you start at, you know, if you start when they're young, they got all their lives to do what they need to do, when they do what they want to do. But if we're not talking with them and finding out what's important to them, I mean, where they going?
Exactly.
Right? I mean, I don't know.
Exposure is everything. Mm-hmm. Yep. Exposure is everything. So expose our young people to all different kinds of people, all different kinds of sports, all different kinds of books, all different kinds of music, so that they can see the possibilities and make some decisions on their own. You sometimes you fail, sometimes you succeed, but it's okay. There's the element of getting out there and trying it, and then figuring out a plan and a strategy, and then making it happen. So
yeah, and so before we close out, if you wouldn't mind, give us 3 tips as we close out of 1, this video, and 2, Women's International Health Month. Once again, it's a month. It is not, I don't know how many times I have to repeat this. In the United States, they got something right when it came down to healthcare. They gave us a whole month. We don't celebrate a whole month. We celebrate one day. That's not what they gave us, and we really need to pat ourselves on the back as much as we can. Take this month and run with it. Do what we need to do with this so that we can show just how important we are before they take it away because we're not using it, right? But without further ado, can you give us 3 tips?
Three things? Sure. Number 1, I would tell you that your day should start with prayer. However long you want to pray, whoever you pray to, I don't care. Start with prayer. Number 2, rework your finances so that it is supporting preventative health. So my food bill's $1,000 a month. That's just my food bill. That's just an example. And then number 3, find some way to move every day. Whatever it is, I don't care. So you're moving every day, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. You can go longer if you want, but find something that moves you every day, gets you active every day. And I would recommend you do at least 5 days out of 7. You can rest on Sunday. I recommend you rest on Sunday. But move. Those 3 things, I think, will take you a very long way. And I know it has for me.
And Carolyn Coleman is saying she applauds you. I have to laugh because she's not saying I applaud you, Dr. Neely, and I'm going to be catching up to you soon. But she said,
absolutely.
I applaud you. I love her. I love her.
Absolutely. I hope you do.
And she's not even addressing the fact that she's going to try to do what you do. But I love her for it because she's being honest. I applaud you, and so many other women who don't know about you, who will be knowing about you because they will see this video and they will understand the importance of women collaborating. We all appreciate you. Right?
Absolutely. Love you much. Thank you so much for the invitation, Ms. Washington.
Oh, not a problem. I will actually be closing the room now.